Hi and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to show you how I created Shoto Todoroki's bodysuit. I did use a commercial pattern for this with a few alterations. I used Simplicity pattern 8722, the orange jumpsuit, which consists of 2 front pieces and 2 back pieces, 2 sleeves, and a collar and some armbands. I cut all these pieces out on this blue fabric that I actually found in the Walmart remnant section. It's not a cotton, but it feels like almost like a rayon fabric. The original sleeve pattern has a full-length arm, however in the cosplay it's only more like a 3/4 sleeve, so I did cut that shorter than what the actual pattern was. For the back piece, I go ahead and match up the back center seam and sew that down. And for the front, I go ahead and sew up where the crotch seam is up to where my zipper will start. And I do serge all my edges since this fabric frayed a lot. Now, the original pattern calls for Velcro in the front closure. However, I decided that a zipper was much easier to install instead of how they wanted me to install the Velcro. And I'm bad at explaining how to install a zipper, so I will leave a link below to a better video on how to install a zipper. And I decided to go ahead and add pockets to this. This is not in the original pattern, but for each pocket I cut 2 pieces exactly the same that's big enough for my hand. And to add the pockets, I go ahead and sew each piece to the side of the front and to the other set to the side of the back. And when all pieces are connected to the side seams of the front and the back, I go ahead and match up the pockets of the back and the front together and sew up all the side seams. And I know I probably did not explain that well. And now I sew up the shoulder seams. I also sew up the inner leg seams. I match up the center back seam and the center front seam and sew down each leg. For the sleeves, I go ahead and match up the side seam and sew that up. I turn that right side out and install that into the armhole. For the armbands, I go ahead and make sure my bands match up to the ends of my sleeve, and then I sew the short side. I sew one of the long sides to the arm. And then I will fold that band in half and sew the loose end to the seam allowance. I do leave a little opening so I can add some elastic. And here I'm just weaving the elastic through that armband that I created. And then I go ahead and sew the elastic together, and then I sew that hole closed. For the collar, I originally had cut the pattern a little bit taller, but as I was making it, realized it was way too tall, so I actually cut this piece in half. I have 2 pieces of the blue, and I use fusible interfacing to make sure it stands up. I fused for his 3 white stripes that go along the back side of the collar. I used the white grosgrain ribbon about a 1/4 inch wide. I curved the edges of that ribbon and I melted it. Taking the collar piece that did not have the interfacing on it, I figured out where the center is of that collar and added my 3 stripes as evenly as possible. And I did curve them along the way the collar is curved, so that way they didn't look weird. And then I go ahead and sew those all down, all around the perimeter of the ribbon. On Shoto Todoroki's cosplay, he wears like a silver necklace type thing in between the collars, and if you look closely, it's actually attached to the collar with some like little pockets. So I took some scraps of fabric with interfacing in them and I measured them where I wanted them to be on the collar, and then I folded them in half and sewed them up. And I did sew on some black Velcro because those will actually hold on the little silver necklace that I will make out of craft foam later on. And then I went ahead and sewed them on the collar, which will be on the inside. And taking the collar piece that has the interfacing on it and the front of the collar, I go ahead and do right sides to right sides and I sew that together. Before I turn it right side out, I do clip the corners and then turn it right side out. And give it a good press. And I attach it to the neckline of the bodysuit. I do use bias tape in a blue color to hide my stitch lines or to hide the seams on the inside of it, but I don't know what happened to that video. For the necklace, I actually used 3 pieces of fun foam or craft foam, and I draw out this circular shape and I cut it out, and then I use contact cement to glue it all together. And I used the width of my Velcro to make sure it was wide enough for that. There will be Velcro on each end of this piece. And also on this necklace there are like lines etched into it. So I'm just taking my X-Acto knife and I'm actually cutting in those lines to the craft foam. And I will use a heat gun to open those lines up. Here, I'm just cleaning the edges of that necklace up. And once it's spray painted silver, I take some black wash and I highlight those lines even more. With the paint job done and it's sealed, I go ahead and use contact cement and add my 2 Velcro pieces to the ends. And then I pop it into those little pouches I created on the collar. And here is the final bodysuit. It's supposed to be baggy, and the person I am making for is actually smaller than my mannequin here, so it actually fits better on her than it does this. The last video will be how I made the shoes. And if you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you next time. Bye!